Alright, so video 2 in our level change tutorial. So this video we're going to look at the actual process of doing what's called a displacement level change. So we're going to be having the player walk through the doorway we created, and when he goes through the doorway he's going to go to the next level. And if he goes backwards through the doorway he's going to go back to the other level. Now mechanics wise, if you walk around the doorway you can glitch this whole thing out. So for the sake of the lesson we're only using the doorway. So just be aware that I am aware that if you go around the doorway you'll break our system here. But I don't want to go through the hassle of building an entire level for this demonstration. So for our purposes, going through that doorway back and forth, just pretend that there's a whole world around you and that's just a single doorway. So the first thing we have to do is add an element to your level that is individual to each of the levels. So you'll notice in my screen here I've got my level A and my level B, and one has blue lights and one has green lights. So I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video and put something in your two levels that will distinguish A and B. So as you go through the door, when you go from level 1 to 2 or from A to B or whatever you named it, you can tell when you change the level. So that's step number 1. So pause the video, add something, a light or a prop, or change the material or texture, whatever, but do something so that you can visually tell that you've switched levels. Alright, so pause, come back. Alright, now the next thing we have to do excuse me, is we're going to put in an entity called an info landmark. Now let me show you my level 1 here from my previous example. So I've got a doorway, okay, there's the player, got some lights, orange lights scattered around. So this is my level 1. I've got a doorway, and right in the center of the doorway I've got this entity right here, and it's called an info landmark. Now what the info landmark does is when you initiate a level change, no matter where the info landmark is at, the game is going to measure your relative position to it, how far you are in front of it, behind it, above it, below it. So it's going to take a measurement of where your player is compared to that landmark. It's going to take those measurements into the next level and put you into the exact same spot relative to the landmark in the other level. So imagine if my player is standing right here when they teleport to the next level. The game is going to take this landmark and it's going to measure, and it's going to say, alright, you are standing, a foot in front of the landmark. So when it loads my player into the next level, it's going to put me about a foot in front of the landmark. So that's why the placement of these landmarks is critical, because if you put it in the wrong spot, the game is going to take measurements from where your player is, and you could end up landing in a wall or outside of the game or something like that. So for our demonstration purposes, what I want you to do is I want you to click on your entity tool. I want you to come over here, type in info landmark, and I want you to drop an info landmark right in the center of the doorway on both of your maps. Okay, level 1, level 2, they're both going to get an info landmark right in the center of the doorway. So if you look at my sample here, this is my level 1, and this here is my level 2. And if you look at my doorway, there's the info landmark. It's right in the center of this doorway. And if we look back at this level right here, you're going to see the same thing. I've got an info landmark right in the center of the doorway. Alright, so pause the video and drop in an info landmark in the center of the doorway on both of your levels. All right, now that you've done that, now I want you to take your selection tool. I want you to double click on the info landmark. There we go. Okay. And we're going to name it. Now the info landmark on both levels has to have the exact same name. Any level that can teleport to another level, you have to have a landmark on both levels. So that's why we put an info landmark in both doorways on level 1 and level 2. Now the second part of that is both of those landmarks have to have the exact same name. You cannot name it landmark level 1, landmark level 2. The landmark is the only thing that we want to use the same names on. Normally I discourage, don't ever name things the same. But the info landmark system that they have in Source requires them to have the same name, because it's a landmark that's in common in both levels. So when you think about it, let's look at this example I have here. Okay, so here's level 1. Gordon's going to walk, and he's going to hit this trigger box right here. Okay, and he's going to be about a foot in front of this landmark. So what the game's going to do is it's going to load him into level 2. Now, let's look at level 2. Okay, so now let's position myself. Alright, so Gordon was going this way, and when he hit that trigger, he's about a foot in front of this landmark right here. So the game is going to spawn Gordon right about here in level 2. So that landmark is like a reference point for both of the levels to look at, and they kind of share it in common. So when the player goes from level to level, they're actually going from landmark to landmark. Alright, so to end this video, what you're going to do is you're going to have these info landmarks in both of your levels. In the doorway, okay, here's my doorway, I've got an info landmark right here. I'm going to put one of them in level 1, and I'm going to put one of them in level 2. So if you look at my map, not that one. So here's one, and this should be the other one. There's the other one. Okay, so you can see my 2 levels. Okay, so here's one of them, and here's the other one. So I've got 2 info landmarks. They're both in the doorways, and I named them both the exact same name. So I named mine L1, L2. You can name them whatever you want, but they have to have the exact same name. They both are the same, L1, L2, L1, L2. Alright, that's going to be the end of this video. Finish that up, and we'll work on the trigger in the next video.